Hey guys, we are back on another ride with the Struggle Bus where every wheel is an empty triangle. So this is the beginning of the Struggle Bus Basics series. And so the goal of this series is to help newer players wrap their heads around some of the basic things about Go that aren't necessarily intuitive when you first start the game. So this series assumes that you know the rules, you know how to play, you've played some games, most likely played a good number of games, but don't necessarily have a good grasp of, just solid basic play. And so that's what this series is going to help with. It's going to help, explain some of the things that we should be looking for and doing, and explaining why some things are good and other things are bad. So we're going to be starting with the Struggle Bus Basics basic rules. I guess I'll probably need to come up with a better name for that because the Struggle Bus Basics basic rules kind of it's a little redundant, but we'll just roll with that for now. And so again, I'm just going to be going over high level stuff. We'll be getting into more details on these. But anyway, let's get to rule number 1 of the Struggle Bus Basics. That rule is that we care about corners before sides before centers. And so when you look at a typical game that's played, you'll generally see each player go grab the first 4 corners. And then there's lots of things that can be done here. But typically it's either going to be approaching one of the corners, reinforcing one of your corners, or going after one of the sides. And so with the little example here, you can see that black approaches one of the corners. White then wants to secure his corner and then extend on the side a little bit. Black then extends on the side. White then goes and grabs one of the corners. Again, we're still looking at corners and sides here before the centers. And then after white gets that corner, black wants to go secure this corner and that side a little bit. This is just a simple example of the first 15 moves of a game. But why is it this way? Why do we care about the corners and then the sides and then the centers? And so that's what we're going over right now. So the best way that I've found to explain this is let's take a look at securing 8 points in the 3 various locations, right? So when you go to the corner, what's nice is you already have 2 walls here, right? You've got both board edges. So when we go to make 8 points, it only takes 7 stones to do it. When you go to the side and try to get the same number of points, we'll go and get our 8 points as here as well. You will notice that it is actually 10 stones to get the same number of points. And now let's go to the center and see how many stones it takes there to get our 8 points. So there's our 8 points, and that took 16 stones. So when you have 2 of those sides helping you out in the corner, it only takes 7 stones to get 8 points. When you've got one of the sides and you have to provide the other 3, it takes you 10 stones to get those 8 points. And when you go to the center and have to build all 4 of these walls, it takes 16 stones to get those 8 points. So that's just a good representation to show this is why we care about sides, then corners, then center. So getting back to our example game, it'll make a little more sense as to why nobody's really gone to the center yet, right? We are starting in the 4 corners, and then we are approaching the corners while also getting a little bit of the sides, right? Both players are doing that. And, up to move 15, we aren't seeing anybody play these central moves yet. Nobody's really caring about this center of the board, and that's going to continue going on for a bit, right? We still have 2 open sides, or 3 open sides that we would expect to not get completely filled, but to be approached and have bases made before we go for the center. So that is the overview for rule number 1 of corners and sides, so corners before sides and before center. So now getting to rule number 2. Rule number 2 is to balance your stones between the 3rd and 4th lines. The reason for that we will get into in further detail in another video within this series. But for now, we'll give the basic explanation of the concepts of territory and influence. So even though we don't care about the center as much at the beginning of the game, it is obviously important later on in the game. So you do want to make sure that you have some support for the center. fourth line stones tend to do a good job of that. Looking at this board, if you had to pick who has better control of this center, you're going to say black. And the reason for that is that black has a lot of fourth line stones right now. And even potentially, we'll treat this as a fourth line stone, but it's also kind of a fifth line stone, right? So black has a lot of fourth line stones that are providing influence, as where white has a lot of third line stones as well as a second line stone here, which provide him more secure territory. So while black has more influence on this board, white has more secure territory. And so that's the trade-off. And there's no right or wrong in this situation. It highlights what the uses of those different stones are. So now looking at this position from white's standpoint, white already has a bunch of low stones and is lacking that balance. So I would expect white to play a fourth line stone somewhere on this board. Now, it's a style preference as to whether you're going to extend from your corner or grab one of the sides or potentially invade black's bottom. But I would expect moves around those, right? Something that either extends the corner, tries to grow the top side, or goes and reduces the bottom. Where exactly the stone is, there's a lot that goes into that specific decision. But for this general rule, this would be the line of thought that I would use for this. So the reason we want good balance is you don't want to be just getting all influence. You don't want to be getting just territory. And again, we'll get into the reasons why that is in a further video. Just for now, understands that if you're typically just playing on the star points, when you've got your turns, so in this situation, after white plays here, if you're just playing this, and then he approaches, and you're just playing this, that you're not really balancing between the third and fourth lines, and so that's typically something you should try to avoid. So in this situation, if you wanted to take this side, you could play a third line stone instead because you already have two fourth line stones. This isn't necessarily a great move in this situation, but it's something, it fits the example as to what I'm talking about when I'm saying we want that balance. And so between these two concepts of going for the corners and the sides and then the center, and balancing influence and territory with your third and fourth line stones, you'll have the good foundations for a good plan for the beginning of the game. Obviously, it's never that simple. It's not going to be that simple, but just having that understanding will help you out. And so hopefully this is helpful to explain why we do play the way we do at the beginning of the game. And then in the second video, which hopefully you can watch after this one, you'll see some more rules that will also help with the beginning of the game to help start the game off right? If you start a game and it just goes poorly from the beginning, it's really difficult to recover. If your foundation is good, it's easier to build upon. So as always, if you have any comments or questions, feel free to comment on this video. I do check them all, and I will get back to you. And if there are any videos or concepts that you would like to see as part of the Strugglebus Basics series, please let me know that, and I will consider that as an option for something to cover. Until next time, thank you for riding on the Struggle Bus, where every wheel is an empty triangle. See you later, guys.